Hi there. We are starting a short series about essential skills. Now, these are the skills which are supplementary to the combative skills, either unarmed or armed, but which are nevertheless very, very important, and in certain situations can make the difference. So there's a few books that we'll be covering on this subject. We're starting with one of the all-time classics, one of the best books for skills, and it's the Sas Survival Handbook by John Lofty Wiseman. Now, Lofty became interested in survival and living off the land when he was a young trooper operating with the SAS, and they were out in the jungle and for a long period of time, and weight is a premium, and Lofty is a big unit, 6'4", and he hadn't carried enough food with him, so he was always hungry, and he had heard that there's a tree called a nibau which provided food. So he climbed up a hill, found this tree, but it was a big tall tree and he didn't really know what to do with it, so he chopped it down and dragged it back to the camp, where he was told that he had to trim it down using his gollock, and in the end, in his own words, he had what resembled a stick of celery from this massive tree, and he thought, I'd better learn about this stuff. So he eventually became the chief instructor for the combat survival course, which is presented to special forces and to all arms, which is both a training program, training the guys in living off the land, survival, recognition of food, navigation, so on. And then there's a test exercise where they have to put it into practice. So Lofty ran that. So when he took over combat survival in the training wing, he revised the program, and he brought in experts in fungi and plant recognition and so on. I know some of you probably have trained with Lofty, and you realise he is a great instructor. He's a great natural instructor, and he energised the program. He wanted to make it interesting. A subject that can be quite difficult, things like recognition of plants and so on. So he made it interesting. One of the things he did was to create training aids, and this is one of them. He made these out of plaster and so on, and so the guys could recognise Amanita muscaria, for example. And Lofty gave me this as a present, which is very nice souvenir. I've got it in my cabinet. So he ran the course for quite a long time, and then he decided to write a book, and he actually showed me the original manuscript when he'd completed it. And in the book there's a lot of plant recognition in it, and Lofty had actually drawn all those plants himself in colour. It was fantastic artwork. Anyway, there was a writer came to Hereford to write a book about Borneo, the Borneo operations, the confrontation, called Peter Dickens, and he spoke to Lofty, and Lofty mentioned this book, and he offered to take the manuscript to a publisher, whereupon it disappeared for quite a while, and Lofty was a bit worried. It was his life's work, and there wasn't any other copies. In fact, he'd written it on a typewriter which he'd salvaged from a dustbin. It was broken, and Lofty repaired it and wrote this book on it. Anyway, in the event, he was contacted by a publisher, and the rest of his history was #1 bestseller in non-fiction. And what the publishers did was they rendered all of Lofty's diagrams and his colour pictures by a professional artist. But to be honest, Lofty's originals were every bit as good. The other thing they did was to check all the facts, because I mean there's things about what you eat and what are toxic and animals and so on. So they went to the various Royal Societies and checked Lofty's facts. And the only discrepancy they found, he'd put a joke in. He'd put a knot, and he'd named it after an unpopular officer in the regiment. And the comment on this knot was, comes apart under pressure. And it was just an in joke, and they picked it up and they wouldn't let him put it in the book. So, as I say, the book became a #1 bestseller, and it was adopted by the military as an official training manual. Lofty also then started doing courses, civilian courses, with his School of Survival, which were extremely popular. And the whole survival movement spread, and today there's been a big resurgence in it, with various natural disasters, riots, upheavals, terrorism and so on. People are looking to be more self-sufficient, and one of the things the book gives you, apart from it being a terrific guide to the techniques, is the survival attitude. And that's something Lofty sought to inculcate, that attitude to keep going no matter what the odds. You know, and there's lots of stories about people who survived against in fearsome situations, being stranded in a lifeboat or up on a mountain or on a glacier or whatever, and survived. So it's that attitude and the mental flexibility to do it. So the book is still extremely relevant. It's still the best book on the subject. It's been copied by other people. I won't go over all the contents, but it covers the whole spectrum, all the different environments, all the different elements, navigation, shelter and so on, fire, everything. It's all in there. And as I say, it's a big book. It's chunky. It's very well illustrated. And it's very, very easy to learn from, and it really is the Bible on the subject.